Please welcome Duncan Wood.
So those who know me, my story, I became a Christian when I was 40, about 15 years ago, having been a non-Christian for most of my life. And thanks to my wife, Carolyn Taylor Knight, she brought me to Dr. Desmond Ford, who brought me to Jesus Christ. So it's a wonderful blessing for me. And in that time of study, I've learned lots about the Bible and Christianity. And one of the things I do enjoy is the parables that were told in the Bible to translate the messages and the meanings behind the Bible in a way that people can understand. And as I was coming to Christ, I was told a particular story, it's a parable, which is a modern-day parable, I suppose you can call it, that really touched me. And I thought I would share that with you for something a bit different. So let me just make sure this is working. Yes, it is, that's me. And the title for today is called The Editing Room. Now, I do filming and editing. Everything is done on computers nowadays. But back long before that, we used to film on film. And to cut a film up, you had to actually take the pieces of film and lay them on a machine, a bit like this one here, and place it across the front. And if there's a piece of the movie or the film you wanted to remove, you'd simply cut it with a razor blade, take the piece of film out, and drop it in the bin. That old term, you'll end up on the cutting room floor, that's where it came from. So if you got cut out of a movie, that was the way it was. I'm telling you, it's relevant to my story. So let's carry on. Joe, let's talk about Joe. Now, Joe was a wonderful man, a Christian, gave his life to Jesus. And when he was younger, he was married with a couple of children and enjoying life and enjoying being a Christian. And one day he was driving down the road and suddenly, out of the blue, this large cement truck took out his car. Didn't know what happened to him. Suddenly he woke up and he was sitting inside a waiting room. He knew it was a waiting room because on the wall it said, waiting room. He didn't know what he was waiting for, so he sat there and waited. Lots of people walking around, and these angelic figures were walking around. They had big wings and they were quite beautiful and tall. But he sat there and just waited, and the clocks on the wall would spin funny, forward and backward, and he had no sense of time. He wasn't sure whether he'd been there for a long time or a short time, but he sat there waiting. And then suddenly one of these angelic figures walked up to him and looked at him, and without moving its lips, it said, "Are you Joe?" And he thought, it's speaking to me. So, "Yes, I am Joe." "It's great, Joe. Just won't be too long. Just sit here a bit longer and we'll attend to you." And he walked away. So he sat there wondering, where am I? Am I dead? Am I in heaven? What? I don't know. So he sat there waiting. And then after a bit longer, again, not sure how long it was. It seemed like a long time. It wasn't sure. Angelic figure came up to him and said, "Joe," without moving his lips. And he said, "Yes, just follow me." So he followed him. He followed the angel along this corridor and turned to this door. And above the door was a big sign. And the sign said, "Editing Room." What's strange? I don't do anything with the film. So he walked inside. And sure enough, there was a big machine there. And on the wall were rows and rows and rows of film cans, which is where they keep all the films. And the figure said to him, "In these cans is your life. We have captured every piece of your life from the day you were born until now. And we're giving you the opportunity to sit down on the editing machine, and I want you to remove all the things that you think are the bad things from your life." He said, "Sure." And without knowing how, he sat down and knew how to operate this machine. So he sat down and loaded up the first roll of film, put it in and pushed the play button. And sure enough, there he was being born, travelling through to his about 2 or 3. And then he saw suddenly the first time he stole a lolly from his grandfather's jar. And he thought, I should get rid of that. Hit the stop button, rewound, put the bit of film in, cut it out, and dropped it into a little box on the floor. Put the film back together and continued to push play. And sure enough, he sat there in amazement, watching his whole life in front of him. It went past and he found, that was the time I was a bit rude to the neighbour. I'll cut that out. So he stopped the film, cut that out, and put it in the box. And continued on, took the next film, put it on, and continued watching all of his life for 55 years. And removed all the bits that he thought were the worst things he'd ever have done. And the box was quite full, actually, by the end of it. And before he realised it, the figure walked back in and said, "Joe, you finished?" He said, "Yeah, I have, actually. This is fantastic. Might be a second." He closed the box up, picked it up, put it on the table, and whacked a big sticker on the side. And picked the box up and said, "Follow me." So he walked with him. not knowing where he was going, what was going on. He wanted to know what the sticker said. And he couldn't quite see it because as the angel was carrying it, he had these big wings. It was blocking the view of the box, so he couldn't see what the sticker said he put on the sign. So he walked down this big, long corridor past lots of different doors. And at the very end of the corridor was this amazingly huge, ornate door. It was absolutely beautiful. And above it was a huge sign. And it said, "The judging room." He thought, the judging room? Okay. And just then the angel turned to open the door. And he looked at the sticker on the side of the box and it said, "Evidence against Joe." So what? All the bad things in my life are in that box. And it's going to be used as evidence against me. He says, "I don't believe this. I'm going into the judging room with all the worst bits." And the angel said, "Follow me." Opened the door up and this amazingly bright light hit him, brighter than these lights in front of him. He couldn't see 5 feet in front of him. And he followed the angel figure and he could see the big wings in the silhouette. And he sort of kept walking and the angel said, "Stop there." And the angel tipped the box and dumped all the film on the floor. Big pile of these film bits that he'd cut out. And he said, "Sit on the floor." So Joe sat down. As he sat there, he saw on the very top of the pile the little piece of film that was the worst thing he had ever done. And he could see it as the light shone through the film. He couldn't believe it. Must be it. I'm toast. I'm sitting here. I'm in front of what I think might be God in the judging room with all the worst bits of my life sitting in front of me. And the very worst thing I've ever done is on top of this pile. He says, I'm gone for. And suddenly, he heard a click and the door opened on the right-hand side of the room. And he couldn't actually see because the light was so light. And he saw this person walking towards him. He started to get a bit nervous. He was a bit worried. And suddenly that person stood in front of him. And he couldn't see the bright light anymore. He was in the shadow. This story always makes me a bit weepy. Call me the weeping preacher if you like this. So he sat there in the shadow of this person, and he couldn't see the bright light. And the voice said from the person, "Father, it is I, Jesus. I'm here because Joe made a deal with me many years ago and chose to believe in me. So I am here for him today." So he took him by the hand and led him out into heaven. So the moral of this story for me, because it was so strong and so clear for me, is, as Des always says, that it's not who you are that's important, it's whose you are. And that who is Jesus. Thank you.
To help you understand God's Word in a whole new way, go to goodnewsunlimited.com. You can sign up there to get your free devotional delivered fresh to you each day. This program has been paid for by the partners and friends of Good News Unlimited. Word spreads fast.